Today, what I'm going to talk about is flexible consistency, which is different than just plain old consistency. And we're going to talk about why this is so important to reach your goals and to create new habits. So whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're just trying to eat healthier, whether you're training to run a marathon, whatever it is, whatever goal that you're trying to reach, whatever intention that you have, this is really going to help you if you incorporate the 4 things we're going to talk about today. If you incorporate them into your life, this is really going to help you stay on track. It's really going to help you reach those goals and create habits that last a lifetime, okay? So you've heard the word consistency before, I would imagine, within the realm of weight loss, within the realm of goal setting. So consistency is key, you may have heard. You've also probably heard words like discipline and routine, and these are important, but I think it's important to recognize that all of these words have sort of an underlying subtext of perfection. And we need to step away from that. So today we're going to flip it on its head, and we're going to talk about something called flexible consistency. So life can be crazy. You know it, I know it. And acknowledging that life can be busy and is busy, and acknowledging that things go wrong, acknowledging that we aren't always able to do the things that we said we were going to do is really, really, really important. Okay. Why is it important? Because if we don't acknowledge that, then we tend to be in a place like an all or nothing approach to life, an all or nothing approach to reaching our goals. And all or nothing, when we're in that mindset, what happens is that when we fail, or when we don't do the thing we said we're going to do for a day, it brings up feelings of failure, right? Just when life happens. And the more feelings of failure we have, the more likely that complete derailment is going to happen. And by complete derailment, I mean, I'll give you an example. Let's say you've set a goal to go for a 30-minute run 3 times a week. And you do it, you knock it out of the park, you do it for a month, and then a week comes up where life goes sideways and you get to it on the Monday, and then you don't get to it again. What happens for a lot of people in that situation is then they feel crappy about themselves, but then the next week they only get out for 1 run, and it just kind of snowballs until you're not running at all, right? There's complete derailment and you feel like crap. Okay. So when we are like, I have to be consistent all the time, when we are in that all or nothing place, it's actually can be really detrimental to us making progress in creating habits. So we want to get out of that. And that's what flexible consistency does. So flexible consistency is really about combining sort of proactive planning skills with reactive adaptation. And when we do this, we really can make significant progress in the long run. So let's talk a little bit more about what this looks like. So it's important to have always, you'll hear me say this all the time, it's really important to have a plan, but more importantly, it's really important to have a system, right? So you want to have a system where you can be consistent, but that system also has space in it for flexibility. So how can you do that? So there's 4 things that you can incorporate into your life that will allow you to be more flexibly consistent. So the first part is really, you must plan for disruption. If something happens, you need to have a backup plan for that, right? So if your plan is to go for a run this morning, but it's looking like a really busy day, then the backup plan is like, okay, if like things do go sideways and I can't make it for that run today, I can do it on Saturday. Okay, so have the backup plan in place and go a step farther. I can do it on Saturday at 10 o'clock, put it in your calendar, it becomes priority, okay? This is important because your goal should always be, when you're trying to create a new habit in your life, the goal should always be to create routine around the new behaviors you have to do. And then the more you do that routine, the more you do those behaviors, then it becomes a habit, right? Because we're always trying to create habits. And research shows that missing one opportunity to perform that behavior doesn't actually have any impact on the sort of habit formation process. So what that means is that if you're going for a run 3 days a week and you miss one day, but you've allowed for that flexibility in there, and you have that backup plan, and the not doing it doesn't turn into failure and apathy, then it doesn't actually impact the overall likelihood of you turning running into a habit that you do 3 days a week. Okay. So plan for disruption. That's the first part, because life goes sideways. So whether it's in your planning for your week or whether it's in your planning for your day, have a backup plan. Okay. That's strategy number one. Super easy, right? It's like when you go traveling with your kids and you're in the busy theme park or something, and you come up with the plan for what happens if you get separated or things go awry. This is the same. You do it in your life. Okay. The next thing you do, strategy number 2, is schedule over scope. So for success in the long run, because that's always what we're opting for, is success in the long run, it's more important to stick to a schedule most of the time than sticking to it perfectly. Again, we want to get out of the mindset of perfection. So let's give an example. This is best illustrated with example, I think. So let's say you are planning on 3 days a week. Let's say you are going to go for a walk from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That is the schedule, okay? So Wednesday rolls around, the kids' soccer game goes late, dinner is late, it's 6:40 before you get an opportunity to go for that walk. But your schedule says 6 to 7, right? What most people do in this situation is they don't go for the walk. They were supposed to go for an hour walk. Now they can only go for a 15-20 minute walk. So they just don't go at all. That's what most people do in this situation. Okay. Don't be most people. What you need to do in that situation instead is you need to go for a 15 or 20 minute walk. So this is what we mean by schedule over scope. When you stick to the schedule, but lessen the scope, you're doing 15 minutes instead of an hour, you are creating the habit. You're still creating the habit of going for a walk 3 times a week. Okay, does that make sense? Let me know in the comments if it doesn't make sense, and I'll try to explain it a little more. So really, James Clear, he wrote Atomic Habits, states it like this: reduce, like when the schedule goes awry, reduce the scope, but stick to the schedule. Okay, that's strategy number 2. Strategy number 3, fail like a scientist. What do scientists do when their experiment doesn't go to plan? They learn from it. They go, why didn't it go to plan? What happened? What do we do differently in the next experiment? Okay, you are a scientist. You are a scientist in the world of habit building, right? So every time something doesn't work out, you have to see it as a new data point, okay? Every time something does work out, you have to see it as a new data point. Everything in the process of habit building is a data point, whether you see the results or whether you don't. So in other words, when things don't work out, you have to have instead of a failure, it's an opportunity. So there's such a huge mindset shift around that. There is no failure. There is only opportunity to learn. Okay. So if that Wednesday walking, that happens 3 weeks in a row, you don't step in a failure mood. You say, oh, okay, this keeps happening. Isn't that interesting? What do I need to learn from this? I need to learn that Wednesdays, I might have to move my walk time from 7 to 8, or I might have to go for a 30-minute walk on Wednesday and a 30-minute walk on Thursday to make up for it instead. So you try something new. If things aren't working, learn from it and try something new. Fail like a scientist. Okay. Strategy number 4 is mindful time blocking. So many of you have probably heard of time blocking before. If you haven't, let me know in the comments. I can do a whole training about time blocking. But time blocking is essentially where your whole day is you block off. So it's from 9 to 10, I'm doing this activity. From 10 to 11, I'm doing this activity. From 11 to 11:30, I'm doing this activity. And your whole day looks like that. So you have broken up your day into blocks of time where specific activities are happening. So that's what time blocking is. Mindful time blocking is a little bit different, and it fits in with this idea of flexible consistency a bit better. So mindful time blocking is where you actually leave most of the day open. There's not blocks there, and you schedule blocks for the truly important work. So in the world that we are in right now, that I'm talking to you about, where it's about creating healthy habits, picking one or two habits that you really want to focus on developing and making those a priority and blocking out time for it. So if you are, let me think of a good example. If you're trying to eat really healthy, if you're trying to hit your macronutrients and that healthy plate concept, you're trying to do that at every meal. If you don't know what the healthy plate concept is, let me know in the comments. I can send you the training. I've done a training all about it. I'll send it to you. So the healthy, let's say that's your goal, is every meal is sort of based around the healthy plate. Well, where that starts is actually grocery shopping, right? If you don't have the proper food in the house to create that healthy plate, you're not going to create it, right? Craft dinner it is. So the process of creating a healthy plate begins with grocery shopping and how you grocery shop. So if you're someone who just goes to the grocery shop and you just willy-nilly, no list, and you get home with what you get home with, this is going to be a problem in terms of healthy eating. So making sure you get the right food at the grocery store is really, really important in that journey. And so going to the grocery store with a list is also really, really important in that journey. So this becomes truly important work. So what you would do is you would time block once a week, twice a week, depends on how often you go grocery shopping. You would time block an opportunity to sit down and create a grocery list. For me, that's Friday. I do it Friday afternoon. It is blocked out. It's a thing. I make a cup of tea. I sit down. I take a break from everything else. I sit down. I make my grocery list. I flip through recipe books. I get inspired. And it takes me about half an hour. When I first started doing it, it took me about an hour, but it felt really important. It was truly important. So that was in a time block. Okay. So we all go to work. Some of us time block our work. Maybe work and just the everyday kind of work is it doesn't make it onto your schedule, your calendar. But the really important things that need to happen every day, they do. There is a block of time for it. It's that 3 30-minute walks a week. That's your goal. Those are on the schedule. They are on the calendar. That is blocked. Maybe the rest of the day is pretty much blank. Just the important things are on there. What this allows us to do when we mindfully time block is it allows for more flexibility. You're like, how, Erin? It sounds like you're pretty you sit down and do your meal plan at this time on this day. Doesn't sound like there's flexibility in there. There is flexibility. So you can move the blocks around because there's time available to move them to. You can shorten the blocks, you can lengthen the blocks. The goal is that you avoid deleting the blocks unless absolutely necessary. And I'm talking like the school calls and your kid's in the ER or there's been a death in the family kind of thing, right? So really, you never delete the blocks. You can move them around, you can shorten them, you can lengthen them. You never delete them, and you never move them like, I'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. It's like, if you move it, you then do it, okay? So when we're mindfully time blocking, there's space, it creates space and for flexibility in our week, in our day. So those are the 4 ways, the 4 things to do to be sort of flexibly consistent in your life, in your achieving goals, in the process of achieving goals, in the process, again, whether that's losing weight, whether that is just upping your exercise that you do, whether it's eating better, whether it's other things as well too, whatever's happening in your life. So again, the 4 ways to be flexibly consistent are: plan for disruption, have a plan B. Strategy 2, schedule over scope. Stick to the schedule. If you have to do it for a shorter period of time, if the scope shrinks, that's okay. Stick to the schedule though. With that, sticking to the schedule, do that with mindful time blocking. So that's like where you shorten the length of time potentially, right? But also have some flexibility and being able to move those really important things around. That kind of goes part and parcel, hand in hand with the having a plan B as well, right? And then fail like a scientist. So consider every result, good and bad, as a new data point, right? When things don't work out, it's an opportunity to learn and to adjust and to adapt and use it as such. So when you incorporate these 4 things into your life, what does it do? Well, first of all, it actually leaves room for life, which is kind of nice because a lot of us feel like slaves to our to-do list. But ultimately, like the best thing about this, I think, is it allows for a really huge mind shift around failure, right? And when we can shift our mindset around failure, it leads to better outcomes in habit creation. When we're flexibly consistent, there is no failure. And if there's no failure, we're way less likely to like completely fall off track, right? This is what we want to do. Habit is just doing behaviors consistently over a period of time until it becomes habit, okay? That's how we reach our goals. It's the process in the middle that matters. It's the doing the behaviors flexibly, consistently for long enough that it becomes habit. The other thing about doing flexible consistency is you're going to find that you're going to feel, when you really start incorporating this into your life and get into the flow of it, you're going to feel a little less bonkers and crazy in life, which is always a good thing. And that feeling of being oppressed by the amount of things we have to do in our life it just becomes a little less oppressive when you realize that there is flexibility and ways to be flexible while still being consistent, while still getting things done, which is a great feeling. So if you have any questions about flexible consistency, if you have any questions about really how to incorporate this into your life more, please throw them in the comments. I'm always happy to answer. And if you have any questions about anything at all, actually throw them into the group, throw them into the comments, and I'll always answer the questions. I check the messages every couple of days. So I will always get back to you. And I hope that you found this training helpful. I'm trying to keep them shorter. See, I did it in 20 minutes because I know you're all busy. So yeah, hope you found this training helpful. Let me know if you did. And I'll see you next week on next week's training. Have a great day.